Hi, this is Steve back at the Listening Post, hopefully none the worse for wear for another night out of live entertainment. By the way, I've said this before, but it's fun to review these albums, and CDs are a great document of where an artist is at a particular point in time. But, the highest compliment you can pay an album is to say, boy, when they were recording that, I sure wish I could have seen them live. And I don't mean live like with 10,000 other people in a huge arena, because by the time a band becomes that popular, I think you've really missed the boat with them. But just live down at a street corner. Any city in America is going to have a bar and a local band, and usually there's a vibrant local scene that's worth checking out. Speaking of which, I was hanging out at my scene, JJ's Blues, in San Jose recently, and in between acts they were playing some music that was unlike anything I've ever heard before. It was kind of dubby, sort of with a reggae beat, but then with this kind of blues guitar playing over it. And I went and checked it out, and it was a compilation by Putumayo called Blues Lounge, and the artist they were playing was somebody named Little Axe. Little Axe is actually the alias for a blues musician called Skip McDonald. He was born in Dayton, Ohio in 1949, and his odyssey has taken him from disco funk in the 70s to hip-hop and rap in the 80s, and then on to electronica and dub, and now this blues experiment he's involved in called Little Axe. Skip McDonald learned blues guitar from his father. When he was 10 years old, he began playing professionally in a jazz band. By the time he was 12, he had switched over to doo-wop and joined a gospel choir. In 1973, he moved to Hartford, Connecticut, and joined a funk dance band called Wood, Brass, and Steel that included bassist Doug Wimbish, who would go on to be a partner and collaborator in all of Skip McDonald's later recordings. They released an album in 1976 on All Platinum Records that contained a song called Funkanova, which has gone on to become an underground classic. All Platinum Records was owned by Sylvia and Joe Robinson. Sylvia Robinson was part of a duo called Mickey and Sylvia. They had a hit in 1957 with a song called Love is Strange that was based on a Bo Diddley riff. She formed All Platinum Records, and in 1973 had another hit under her own name, Sylvia, called Pillow Talk, which I seem to recall was a very sexual, provocative kind of a disco single with a lot of sexual innuendo, a lot of moaning and groaning in there. Pillow Talk. In the late 70s, as the disco craze was starting to wind down, Sylvia Robinson was looking for a new sound, and she just happened to be attending a party in the Bronx in New York and heard this new style of music called hip-hop coming from a bar down the street. Hip-hop had been very popular throughout the 70s in the Bronx. It was brought over from Jamaica by a guy named DJ Kool Herc. He moved to the Bronx in 1967, and he started performing these sound system dance parties that were very popular in Kingston in the 50s and 60s. A sound system was basically a group of DJs who would just show up with a flatbed truck and a bunch of equipment and start spinning albums, typically old American R&B. When R&B gave way to rock and roll in the 60s, they invented a new style of music that became known as ska. And two of the biggest Jamaican DJs were Cox and Dodd, who formed Studio One Records, and Duke Reed, who formed Treasure Island Records. These Jamaican DJs would do something called toasting, where they would talk over the music as it was playing, and that basically became rap when it was brought over to the United States. Instead of DJs, here they were called MCs. Anyway, Sylvia Robinson heard this music and basically decided this was the next big thing, and she just knew nothing about rap. It had been going on for years, and these rap parties would play all night long, and nobody ever really thought that they could be put on record, but she was determined to do so and grabbed a couple of rappers basically off the streets, brought them to the studio, and she set up a house band with Skip McDonald, Doug Wimbish, and Keith LeBlanc, who had performed on her All Platinum Records label. She started a new label called Sugar Hill Records, which was named after the Sugar Hill neighborhood of Harlem where she grew up. And she renamed this band that had been Wood, Brass, and Steel. They were now called the Sugar Hill Gang. And they performed on this very first hip-hop album called Rapper's Delight that was released in 1979. Rapper's Delight contains the line hip hop, hippity hop, which is a reference to soldiers marching in formation. One of the rappers had a friend that joined the military, and that's where hip hop comes from. The Sugar Hill Gang with Skip McDonald also performed on 2 songs by Grandmaster Flash, The Message and White Lines, which were also very early hip-hop hits. In 1981, the drummer for the Sugar Hill Gang, Keith LeBlanc, began freelancing at Tommy Boy Records, and he met a British producer named Adrian Sherwood, who was well known for his experimental dub and techno dance records at On You Sound Studios in London. Sherwood convinced the studio to relocate to London, and they rechristened themselves as Tackhead. This is a compilation of Adrian Sherwood's dub recordings for On You Sound. Not a bad way to get a hold of some of that music. Tackhead became Adrian Sherwood's house band at On You Sound, and they began performing at his sound system parties in London. And they had a guy named Gary Clayle who would function as the MC while Adrian Sherwood operated the mixing boards. In 1987, Tackhead released an album called Tackhead Tape Time, which is basically a document of these sound system parties they would throw over in London. Then in 1989 they released an album called Friendly as a Hand Grenade with a proper vocalist, Bernard Fowler, providing the singing. And then in 1990 they went on a world tour to promote their music. In 1992 Skip McDonald changed his name to Little Axe and began performing this dub blues music, and he released an album in 1994. Basically it was Tackhead, but now instead of performing techno industrial dance music they were performing blues music, and they released a single called Ride On, which was featured in a commercial for Barclays Bank. The first album is called Little Axe, The Wolf That House Built. Little Axe, that name comes from a Bob Marley song called Small Axe, and from a gospel singer named William Little Axe Broadnaw. And the album's name, The Wolf That House Built, is a reference to Howling Wolf and Son House, 2 popular blues musicians. It's got a song on it called Ride On, and it's also got a nice extended jam on a song called Dayton that I like a lot. In 2002, Skip McDonald released his 3rd Little Axe album. It's called Hard Grind. This contains the 2 tracks that I heard on the Putumayo release, Midnight Dream and Long Way to Go. It's also got a song called Down to the Valley, which is kind of a gospel song. If you've ever wondered what dub gospel sounds like, you might want to check out Down to the Valley from this Hard Grind album. In 2006, Little Axe released an album called Stone Cold Ohio. This is still produced by Adrian Sherwood, featuring Doug Wimbish and Keith LeBlanc on bass and drums. The album opens with a cover of the Reverend Gary Davis tune, If I Had My Way, which I recall the Grateful Dead performing in concert a few times. And it's also got a cover of a Little Feat song on it called Rocking Shoes, which he does a nice job on. Skip McDonald continues to perform with Adrian Sherwood. He's worked with Sinead O'Connor, Megadeth, 9 Inch Nails. Keith LeBlanc performed on the first 9 Inch Nails album. They performed with Living Colour, and Doug Wimbish went on to join Living Colour as their bassist. In 2004, Tackhead reunited for a tour of North America and Europe. 2009, Skip McDonald released an album called Call My Name. It was a project with a singer named Davey Tor from the Mariuccian, it says here, Mariuccian singer Davey Tor. And he's still performing as Little Axe. He's just released an album in 2011. Came out with another album by Little Axe. Well, I hope you found this interesting. I encourage you to check this music out. It's wholly original and quite rewarding. This is Steve at the Listening Post. Thank you again for listening and hanging out with me, and we will see you again next time.